Morning class. Today we're going to work on activity 1. It says explore transformations. We're going to talk about what happens when the graph is shifted up or down or left and right. And I'm going to explain kind of how this works. So if you first would highlight or box in this table on the right hand side of page 1, this table is going to be used throughout the worksheet. I would highly recommend that you actually copy this table on the next 3 pages. That way you don't have to keep flipping back and forth. I went ahead and when I go to page 2, you'll see that I have actually already copied it for myself. So if we look at this table, f of negative 2 is equal to 1. So if I come over to f of negative 2 and I go up, my y value is 1. F of negative 1, my value is negative 1. At f of 0, my y value is 2. And so forth and so on for the other 3 points to continue out the table. Okay, we're going to work a few problems today, and then we're going to work the rest of them in class. So first, let's look at problem number 1. It says complete tables and sketch the graph of the equation. So here we have y equals f parenthesis x plus 2 close parenthesis. What I want you to do is take these x values that you have, and we're going to plug them into the equation. So, my first equation, I have f of x plus 2. And my first value is negative 4. So, wherever I see the x value, or excuse me, the x variable, I'm going to plug in the x value. So, my first one is a negative 4. So, negative 4 plus 2 is a negative 2. If I go back up to this table, I'm looking for where f of negative 2 is. If you look at that table, f of negative 2 is equal to 1. So my answer for the first point is 1. Okay, and I'm going to go ahead and finish out the rest of the table doing the exact same thing. So the next one, I'm going to be working with negative 3. Okay, I have f of negative 3 plus 2, and negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1. So f of negative 1, if I go back to my table, is again a negative 1. Then I'll have f of negative 2 plus 2, which is 0. So f of 0 going up to the table is 2. I will have f of negative 1 plus 2, which will give me f of 1. At f of 1, my answer is 1. And then last, I will have f of 1, or excuse me, not last, f of 0 plus 2, which 0 plus 2 is 2. So if I look at f of 2, my answer is 3. And then last, I'll have f of 1 plus 2. 1 plus 2 is 3. So in my table at f of 3, my answer is 0. So what I want you to do is go ahead and plot those 6 coordinate points on your graph. And if you connect them, you should see that it actually is identical to the values that are listed in the original table. My y values are the same. Okay, so once you get that copied down, let's go ahead and go to page 2. And we are going to work problem number 2. Using the exact same thing that we just did on the other page. Now my function says f of x minus 2 in parentheses. Again, if you notice on the right-hand side of my page, I have the tables there. Go ahead and copy them down so you do not have to keep flipping back and forth. So let's follow the same rules. I have f, and again, wherever my x variable is, I'm going to take those x values and plug it in for x. So I have f of 0 minus 2. 0 minus 2 is negative 2. And if I go back down to my table, at f of negative 2, my answer is 1. I have f of 1 minus 2 gives me f of negative 1. At f of negative 1, my answer is negative 1. At f of 2 minus 2 gives me f of 0. At f of 0, my answer is 2. And if I continue doing the exact same thing, I would end up finishing out the table identical once again. This would be 1. I would have 3. And then I would have 0. Okay, so if you follow the pattern, you should be able to fill out using x for 4, or 4 for x and 5 for x. Okay, we're going to go ahead and skip number 3. Let's go to number 4. Okay, again, I have those tables there for you to reference. Now, if we notice number 4, it's actually a little bit different. Here I have the function, and I actually have the subtraction outside of the parentheses. I have the operation outside of the parentheses. So here, instead of actually subtracting first and then going to the table, I'm actually going to come up with a value from the table first, and whatever that answer is, subtract 2 from it. So again, if I look at my table, here are my x values for this problem. I'll have f of negative 2 minus 2 is equal to what? So again, once I fill that out, I want you to look back at the table. For f of negative 2, my answer is 1. So to get my y value, 1 minus 2 is a negative 1. So my first value is negative 1. The next one, f of negative 1 minus 2. At the table, it says f of negative 1 is a negative 1. So I have negative 1 minus 2 gives me a negative 3. That'll be my next point. These 3's do not want to write. There we go. Okay. Then I'm going to plug in the 0. So at f of 0, my f of 0, according to my table, is 2. So 2 minus 2, my answer is 0. At f of 1, my answer at f of 1 is 1. So 1 minus 2 is a negative 1. And let's do the last ones. We've got f of 2, and we're going to have f of 3. So I want you guys to go ahead and fill out the rest of that table, and let's see what you got. You should have f of 2 minus 2. So f of 2 was 3. 3 minus 2 gives me 1. And then here I have f of 3. F of 3 is 0. 0 minus 2 is a negative 2. And that's going to give me this last coordinate. Again, go ahead and plot those points on the graph, and you may connect them. And you can see that in this particular graph, what happened. Okay, let's look at this last page. We're going to be working with problem number 6. Okay, again, make sure you have that table copied. All right, so problem number 6 says y equals f of 1/2 x. So this is actually pretty similar to what we did on the first page, except for this time it is using a fraction instead of a whole number. So let's see what happens when we use a fraction. Again, we are going to write f of 1/2, and my first x value is a negative 4. So I am going to actually multiply negative 4 times 1/2. Now the other way you can do it, if you want to do it mentally, you are more than welcome to use a calculator. But if you do it in your head, all you're doing is dividing by 2. Multiplying by 1/2 and dividing by 2 is the same thing. So here I have a negative 2. So I have f of negative 2, and if I look at my table, my answer should be 1. The next one, I'd have f of 1/2 times negative 2. Negative 2 times 1/2 is a negative 1. And when I look at f of negative 1, my answer is a negative 1. The last one, I've got f of 1/2 times 0. Remember, anything times 0 is 0. So at f of 0, my answer is 2. Now what I'm going to ask you to do is finish the rest of problem number 6. We will work the rest of the problems in class. So make sure you have everything copied down, and I will see you tomorrow.